Hey, good evening, everyone. This is State Representative Brad Halbrook, along with State Reps Dan Calkins from Decatur and State Rep Chris Miller, and the State Director of the Illinois Freedom Caucus, Colin Mosley. Welcome, everybody. How's everything going?
Great, doing really well. Lovely back here in Springfield.
Another day in paradise.
Another day in paradise. Well, folks, again, we always want to pursue truth, logic, and common sense, and we got a couple subjects we want to talk about here tonight. Maybe three subjects, depending on the time frame. But Colin, I'm going to kick it over to you. You've got something that's kind of important. It's involved a few of our members, and so with that, Colin, welcome to the event tonight, and the floor is all yours.
All right. Hey, thanks so much, Brad. You know, one thing that is so important to the Freedom Caucus, one of our pillars of our organization is, economic growth, lower taxes, business-friendly environment policies. And there's certainly no other organization right now in the conservative world besides Club for Growth that is leading that effort. Club for Growth is the largest nationwide conservative limited government organization that there is. The president of State Freedom Caucus Network, Andy Roth, was previously the president of Club for Growth. And I think that just shows how the strong connection between Freedom Caucus and Club for Growth. And so speaking of that strong connection, three of our members in Illinois, Chris Miller, Blaine Wilhauer, Adam Niemerg, they all have had the chance to be Club for Growth fellows as state legislators this year. I think that's a very awesome opportunity, especially considering the fact that we have three, not only from Illinois, but from our caucus. So I want to kick it over to Representative Miller, our chairman of the Freedom Caucus, to talk about their retreat that they had in Colorado this past month for Club for Growth Fellowship members. Chris?
Well, thank you, Colin, and thank you, Brad and Dan, for hopping on this evening, as well as the people that are watching there from their homes. We really appreciate your support. But yeah, it was quite an honor to be invited to the Club for Growth Fellowship. Not only, as Colin mentioned, it was pretty amazing that we had three fellows, because I know that there were one of the things I thought was interesting too is that most of the state legislators that were invited to this event were also members of their state Freedom Caucus, which is a real testament to the organization of the statewide Freedom Caucus, that they're actually training up the next generation of conservatives to stand in the gap to try to push back against the tyranny and the anti-growth, anti-government policies that we see perpetrated, unfortunately, on both sides of the aisle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's important to know that Club for Growth, they truly believe, and I think that we all believe as members of the Freedom Caucus, that prosperity and opportunity come from and help to enable economic freedom and freedom in general. So Club for Growth actually puts their money where their mouth is at, and they take on members of Congress every cycle to support people that are pro-business and pro-economic freedom, but also to support candidates to run against members that are not pro-economic freedom. So that, I think that arm of Club for Growth is so important too, that they actually put their money invested into campaigns to make sure their cause is pushed forward.
I think one thing that people need to understand too is that even though we were at Colorado Springs at a very nice facility, we were in meetings from 8 a.m. in the morning until 9 p.m. in the evening. So they probably knew that they needed to keep Adam and Blaine busy. Otherwise, they might idle hands in the devil's workshop. So, no, but it was good. But we heard a lot of excellent speakers from various regions of the United States. I know that the Attorney General from Texas was there talking about the border, and which we might swerve into here after a while. But every speaker brought something unique and different to the piece of the conservative puzzle to help us to put tools in our toolbox so that we can effectively communicate and cast a vision of freedom and liberty, of of individual liberty, of limited government, of the rule of law, of fair markets, fiscal responsibility, and peace through strength. And those are all kind of conservative ideals that make America America. And those are things that we need to not be bashful about articulating, because our pro-growth, pro-freedom policies are actually what allow us to be successful and to have economic opportunities, and because we want the next generation to stand on our shoulders and actually have more opportunities than what we have had. And if we continue down the pathway that we're on, those opportunities are going to become less rather than greater. And so we need to put up our hand and say stop. And we need, our cars tell us every now and then, recalculating. we need to recalculate and head in a different direction than what we're going, especially here in the state of Illinois.
Right. Colin, anything else? Chris, anything else to add to that event?
No, it was just a great experience, and it was also great to meet other conservatives from across the nation, to be able to bounce ideas back and forth and talk. Because one of the biggest things is being able to communicate and cast a vision. You know, it says in the back of 2:2, it says to write the vision and make it plain so those that read it can run with it. And so it's important for us to be able to clearly articulate a very clear vision of conservatism and communicate it in such a way that it resonates with the voters.
Yeah, excellent. Good stuff. Guys, let's dive into topic number 2, which is Title 42 goes away on Thursday, May 11th. That has to do with deporting illegal aliens right back to their home countries. And that goes away on Thursday, May 11th. A lot of discussion going on around about that. You know, we've talked about the mayor of Chicago, how she was all about a sanctuary city, and Illinois is a sanctuary state, until she started getting illegal aliens up there, and then all of a sudden she started to sing a different tune. But just a couple things before we throw this wide open for a little discussion is the White House spokesperson, KJP, says illegal immigration has dropped 90% under the Biden administration. And then I think it was Mayorkas says that the border is secure. Gentlemen, what's your thoughts on that?
That must be new math. New math. That's a whole different curriculum. Because anybody that knows anything about anything knows that the border is absolutely wide open, and we've had millions of illegals flood into our country and just cause havoc. And it's amazing how quickly our sanctuary cities and sanctuary states start screaming out loud as soon as the illegals start showing up on their doorstep and they have to deal with it.
Right.
Yeah, Brad, I think she's either mentally deficient or she's a liar, and I'll let other people make that choice. I just think we have no idea who's coming into this country, and we have people coming from all over the world. I mean, it's not just poor folks from Mexico or Central America or even South America. I mean, they're processing people from Africa and China, the Middle East. How are these people how are they getting to Mexico? How are they getting to Texas and Arizona? How are these people actually? It astonishes me. They have the ability to get from Africa to Mexico, to illegally enter this country. They obviously don't speak Spanish. I don't know. We're seeing weird things happen. We've got people running around this country. We have no idea who they are, where they came from, or why they're here. And I don't know where that leads us, but I don't think it's to a good place. And that's very, very concerning. The Biden administration has for some reason, has decided to throw open the borders to this country to anybody that wants to come in here and do whatever the heck they want. And I don't see a good end to that.
Well, I think we need to make sure that people understand why this border crisis is important. We've, to us in Illinois, we've talked about the sanctuary city stuff in Chicago and the mayor and what she said about all of that on her way out. But Dan, Chris, there's a program that's barely 3 years old, getting ready to expand under legislation this spring for Medicaid for illegal aliens that is now set to cost, estimated next year with the current population, the proposal with just what we have today, to be $1.1 billion and growing.
Mm-hmm. That's all. That's the biggest caveat there, is that it's growing. And if they're projecting it to be 1.1, guess what? Our real life experience tells us that it's going to be much more than that, that it won't be one. It won't. We know one thing, that it won't be 1.1. It will be much higher than that, because these guys have a history. They have a track record. They're very predictable on what actually is going to happen here. And what's going to happen is the taxpayers in Illinois are going to be picking up the tab. I mean, let's face it, when we think about our own families and our own situation, we have trouble. I know every one of my kids is on Samaritan Ministries healthcare plan, and it's a shared ministry. It's not Samaritan Ministries; it's just called Samaritan. But it's a shared plan that's actually affordable to young families. Where these guys, I'm sure that they're going to get the Cadillac healthcare, that the best that money can buy, on our backs, when our own kids and our own families are struggling to try to pay their growing and ballooning healthcare costs.
Right.
I think one of the big problems with this program is that it's not recognized by the federal government. We're in a cost share arrangement, so with the federal government for all of our Medicare, Medicaid, and this is not a part of the waiver recognized reimbursement. So there's no, we spend 1.1 billion and the feds give us 600 million back. That doesn't happen here like it does with our nursing homes and some of our other programs. Mm-hmm. This is $1 billion, and to Chris, to your point, that they say today it's 1.1 billion. Just 3 months ago, it was 200 and some million.
Right.
The governor proposed the budget, and he said, we're going to spend 200 and what, Brad, 68 or $1 million this coming year on this healthcare program for people that are, illegal immigrants here. And 3 months later, they go, oops, it's 900 and some odd million. And then a week later, it's, oops, we were wrong. It's 1.1 billion. I mean, it's and who knows where it actually ends up. And what happens? What happens when they run out of money? What's going to happen when they run out of funding? And the people that have enrolled in this program go to seek medical care, and the providers aren't going to get paid.
Yeah,
they're not going to get paid because there's no money left in that budget.
Right.
So now they got to come back for a supplemental. They have to go borrow the money, take it out of the rainy day fund. $1 billion. And somebody, Brad, how many seconds that is? I mean, it's like 60 seconds in a minute, and you take that times a minute, times an hour, times a day, times a week, times a month, times a year, and how many seconds that is. And it's 1 billion seconds, and it's just some unrecognizable.
Well, it gets into the years, I think. I think that's a number of years. $1 billion. I mean, $1 billion is 1,000 million. Okay. 1,000 million.
Yeah. So, this is money that we have all paid. Mm-hmm. All of us have paid into the state in one form or another. Mm-hmm. And it's money that, could be used for many, many, many other other things,
Correct.
many other things. Property tax relief. I don't care. I mean, there's just so many things that we could use that money for.
Right.
And but this is a priority. What Chris said last year, show me your budget and I'll tell you what your priorities are.
Yeah.
And this must be a priority, is taking care of the illegal immigrants in this state, as opposed to the kids and poor working families that could use some help.
Yeah.
I think that's one reason why the America First and the Illinois First vision for the future resonates with voters, is because right now the typical Illinois business, the typical Illinois family is not given priority, and we aren't making decisions based on what's in the best interest of our native citizens that have lived here for their life, have raised their families, has run their businesses. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the people that have been most faithful to the cause are the ones that are really getting screwed in this whole deal.
Yeah. Colin is our state director. What do you see? How do you see this? And what's across the network? What are you hearing from other states? What's your take on this?
Well, I think it's important to note that, first of all, Joe Biden, when Chris talks about, and everyone's talked about how you can't trust these people on any front with their numbers. Well, I mean, just back in January, Joe Biden was talking about strengthening Title 42, and now here we are in May, and we're talking about ending Title 42. So these people obviously can't get their facts straight, and maybe that was a moment of cloudiness for our president Joe Biden. But Title 42 is essentially the only measure that is being used right now to effectively turn people away or send them back from our border. Then the Biden administration claims that when Title 42 expires, that they will rest all of their chips on, I think it's Title 8, which is the standardized practice for immigration. Well, I mean, we see how that's going. And it's just hilarious to see these people totally ignore consequences for their actions. And that's the same thing we see here in Illinois and in Chicago. Mayor Lightfoot does not want to recognize consequences of her actions. When you call it a sanctuary city, you're going to get a sanctuary city. When people show up, now we don't know how to deal with them. And I was listening to an interview earlier by Jesse Waters, and there was a black female Democrat interviewing on the radio, and she said, look, we can't even take care of our own people. And she was saying this from the perspective of minority communities, but it doesn't matter. We can't even take care of our own people in Illinois. We've got people starving, people on the streets, people dying in the streets. And now we're going to talk about opening it up to illegal immigrants. And that word illegal should set the bar right there. When you have to refer to somebody as illegal, and then we talk about giving them tax dollars, that it just doesn't make any sense. But then again, they don't know what a boy or girl is either. So you can only expect so much from these people.
Right. Hey, let me bore you guys with some numbers I heard this morning. Bear in mind these numbers, and there's about 10 of them, but these are statistics of 1 week's activity on the border. Okay. 55,000 crossings or people that were apprehended, 55,000. Nearly 19,000 were getaways. Many border agents were assaulted. They seized $714,000 in cash, 101 pounds of cocaine, 1,050 pounds of marijuana, 2,721 pounds of meth, 138 pounds of fentanyl, 6 guns, 6 sex offenders, and 7 gang members. And the White House says the border's secure. Gentlemen, I don't know. Their idea of being secure and ours is two different things.
Brad, I mean, do the math right there. So just right there, if the White House says everything's down by 90%, I would hate to know what they think the stats were. If they're saying it's down by 90%, they're admitting that at some point this was at 100%. And so God knows what that means for our country.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, right now that's 10,000 a day coming across. 10,000 a day.
Yeah. That's pretty much what they're expecting. And we go back to the cost and who's bearing the cost.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, well, we're going to let the federal government bear the cost. We're asking the federal government for money. That's our money.
Yeah.
That's our taxpayer money. That's not it. That's not a eeny, meeny, chili beanie. Even though they are printing the heck out of it, that money is our money, and it should be used to take care of our people, our country. We have so many problems in this country with education, with poverty, with drugs, with addiction, with mental health. The $1 billion we just read, Brad. We just read about lead pipes in schools. How many schools, when they did the water samples, had lead in their water? And $1 billion to go and make drinking water safe in our communities. We're fighting for a little $200,000. Not that, it's a little more than that. It's maybe a $600,000 project in Farmer City to replace a water line from the 1800s, and we're fighting to get funding for that.
No, it's pretty amazing. That's one thing that I always hear people talk about is they talk about the federal money and federal dollars and state dollars, and they have no ability to have any money unless they confiscate it from somebody else. And so they're the only way. And another thing too is that even when you think about the budget we're going to look at here in a few days, it'll be 2,500 to 3,000 pages of pork. There'll be grease dripping off of it that nobody's read, and they'll just throw up in their hands and, well, these are state dollars. Well, I'm sorry, they're not state dollars. They're taxpayer dollars, and at the very least, I know that Dan and I came in the beginning of the Pritzker administration, and the budget has ballooned to a minimum of 12 to 13 billion dollars more in this budget coming up than it was in 2019 when he took office. Now just let that soak in for a minute when you think about a 1 billion being, what did you say, 1,000 million?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, just think about that. And it's 12 to 13 billion more. And when in the first budget he proposed, we thought was crazy.
Oh yeah. I've got the little thermometer back here from, back in the day.
And Illinois is broke and people are leaving. Families are leaving. Businesses are leaving. The tax base is leaving. And we just keep spending more money like it's magic. I don't understand what these people are thinking about.
It's funny you say that, because when you tie in our Club for Growth conversation to this conversation, Club for Growth is meant to draw in economic prosperity, businesses, and jobs. But it seems like the only people that we're drawing into Illinois are illegals who don't pay taxes. That's the only person hopping on the plane to come to Illinois. Everybody else is going out the door.
Right.
No, it's true. Well, very true.
Yeah, and I guess also just to kind of add on this, the Laredo mayor has basically put in a state of emergency in Laredo Monday morning. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has deployed a new border force to deal with the catastrophic disaster, in quotes, he talks about, sending hundreds of new troops down there to kind of deal with this situation. This report says 13,000 a day are expected. I think moments ago I talked about 10,000 a day currently. This is saying 13,000 a day are expected to cross once this Title 42 comes off. This is going to be, if it isn't already devastating to Texas and other border states, this is not going to make it any better.
Correct.
It's got to be devastating.
Right. So, guys, I think we were going to get into topic 3, but I think maybe we'll just end it there and kind of tease that up for the next go around. a lot of good things are happening in other states, and we want to talk about that and kind of compare and contrast to what's going on in those other states, and how other states that are adopting better policies are thriving and doing extremely well, and Illinois just does the exact opposite and is seeming to go the other direction. And we continue to talk about that, and that's what we're here for, guys. We're here to talk about the right policy to put us on the right trajectory.
Truth, logic, and common sense lives. This is its home.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, let's do this, Colin, and then we'll go to Dan and Chris to close out. And with that, thanks for joining us. Colin, any closing comments?
Nope. Just keep your eye on Sprinkle these next 2 weeks as we approach our adjournment.
Yeah. Very good. Well, as we're closing out the last 2 weeks of the spring session here, we're going to pay for the inactivity that we've had over the last 2 weeks. We've basically gone in and out and done very little, passed a few bills the last 2 weeks, and now it's all piled up. And at some point, the dam is going to burst. I don't think the Democrats have any intention of leaving these bad bills on the table for next year. And we'll be keeping you all informed. We could come back at any time, and I know we'll be back hopefully next week with some news about the budget on how things are going. We're hearing the disarray in the Democrat caucus over this budget. We have a lot of new members, and they all have their priorities, and of course, the Democrats get to put their priorities in a budget, and they're fighting over scraps over what's going to be left. $1 billion budget shortfall, $1 billion, healthcare addition, and the cost of living. The cost of running a government. We feel it at home. The government feels it. I mean, we have to feed people. We have to buy gasoline. We have to pay for healthcare. So the cost of running government is going up substantially. The minimum wage goes up $1 a year. It's going to put a tremendous amount of pressure on Illinois in a time when we're, I think, one of the least prepared states in the nation. And help us, God help us, if the economy does take a dip. Right. It'll only make things worse. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. We'll keep fighting for you, and we'll be in touch. We'll stay tuned, and better news is coming. I hope.
I hope so. Chris.
Well, one thing I know is that whatever we do, we can't give up. Illinois is worth fighting for, and I think with the right public policy and the right people leading this state, that we can pull this state out of the tailspin that it's in. And we didn't get here overnight, and we aren't going to dig ourselves out of this hole overnight. But one thing I know is that we need to keep our nose to the grindstone. We need to continue to fight for policies that we know can make Illinois great again. We need to fire the frauds. We need to hire better people. Like the old saying, it's a form of insanity to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. The Dems have been in charge for 40 years, and they have put us on this course of destruction. They're literally destroying our state. They're destroying safety and security. They're destroying quality education. They're destroying economic opportunity, and they've destroyed our energy independence. And we used to be a net exporter of energy. Now we're an importer, and the skyrocketing prices are the inflation that's hitting everybody's pocketbook, and it's making it harder and harder to pay your bills, raise your family, and do the things that are necessary to survive in Illinois. And one thing I know is Illinois is a state where we shouldn't just be surviving, but we should be thriving. And that can happen through good public policy. And so my resolve, and I know the resolve of the Illinois Freedom Caucus, is to continue to fight the fight, try to educate the public, and slowly but surely claw our ways out of this hole that we have dug for ourselves. And we can do it, but we all got to work together and be on the same page, moving in the same direction to make Illinois great again.
Exactly. Gentlemen, thanks for joining in. Great discussion tonight. If there's something breaks this week in Springfield, we'll jump back in here and go live. Potentially depending on what happens. We know it's going to be an interesting roller coaster ride over the next several days. And with that, everybody, we would always covet that you would like, share, follow, and subscribe to our content. And until we talk again, have a great evening.